So, shalom, shalom. Shar Shabbat, happy Sabbath. Now we're going to have our Sabbath delights, right? That we may get delighted and fresh, right? Because the world is always fleshly, right? And we need to get refreshed by the word, right? And one way to get refreshed by the word is to start what? With yourself, right? Therefore, let's start here. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5, right? Examine yourselves. Let's read that again. Examine yourselves, right? Whether ye be in the faith, prove your own selves. Know you not your own selves, how that Yahweh Shai HaMashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates, right? So it starts with oneself, right? How can we fix others if we ourselves are not yet fixed? How can we become a light to others if we ourselves are filled with what? Darkness, right? We have to make sense of things, right? If we ourselves are not making sense, right? We have to then look for sense, right? And that sense is the word, right? We have to make sense of our words, right? Colossians 4 and 6. Colossians chapter 4 and verse 6, let your speech be always with what? With grace, seasoned with salt, right? That you may know how, excuse me, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man, right? So you have to make sense of what you are saying, right? And one thing, right? One thing that is very important in this thing is the power of the tongue, right? We got to improve on that, right? Because in this walk, right, whether you may be new to the truth or intermediate in the truth, right? Or practicing the truth, right? You need to have that power of the tongue, right? Because that's because you're going to encounter different kinds of beliefs, doctrine, disagreements, different angles, different perspectives, right? Different positions, opinions, right? And you need a way to, you know, process that, right? So that you can wash away your mind with the confusions of the world, right? Because it's hard to get confused, right? You need to be grounded in this thing, right? That's why you have to have that spirit of the sword of the spirit, right? Let's go there. Ephesians 4 and 17, I think. This is the book of Ephesians, chapter 6 and verse 17. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is what? The word of God, right? You need to use your sword wisely, right? Because that's how we will defend or use it at offense, right? The word of God, right? That we may grow in this thing, right? Because how can you have a conversation if your sword or if your tongue is not being practiced or is not used, right? It's not going to be used, right? It's useless, right? It's basically useless, right? Let's go to let's go to Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 4, right? A wholesome tongue is what? A tree of life. But perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit, right? We need to have that wholesome tongue, right? We can build towards that. That's something we can what? Practice, right? But first, what is a wholesome tongue? A wholesome tongue is something that you something that cures or healthy, right? Also, or suggestive of good health and physical well-being, right? It is well to the spirit, right? To have a wholesome tongue, right? That is a tree of life, right? Which reminds me, right? When we are examining ourselves, right? We know we have to know which part of our flesh needs water, right? Or need to make sense or need to get fasted on, right? One of those is to have a the power of the tongue, right? And if you are improving that tongue, right, you are then being a what? A good tree, right? Let's go to Matthew 7, verse 17. So now this is the book of Matthew 7, chapter, excuse me, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 17. Even so, every good tree bringeth forth what? Good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit, right? So when you are practicing that, right, you are practicing reading, right? You are washing yourself with water by the word, right? Let's bring that out. This is Christ, right? Excuse me. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Verse 26, that he might what? Sanctify and cleanse it with washing of water by the word. A tree needs to get watered, right? When you are watering it, right, it's going to be nourished and nurtured, and it will bring forth what? Good fruit, right? Even so, let's read that again. Matthew 7, verse 17. Even so, every good tree bringeth forth what? Good fruit. But a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. Next verse, verse 18. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit, right? So whatever thoughts, whatever it is that is in you or what you are thinking, right, is gonna come forth, it's gonna come out, right? That's why if you water it with the word, right, it's going to bring forth what? A good fruit, right? A good fruit is also what? A wholesome right? I guess we need to be righteous with what we say. We need to be um, when we deliver counsel or judgment, right? It has to be appropriate, right? It has to be aligned with what we need to say, right? Because if we excuse me, we need to correct, right, with the right tonality, right? And that's where you can begin, right? Let's go to Proverbs 18 and 21. Because death and life are what? In the power of the tongue. Let's read that again. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Continuing, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof, right? Which fruit do you want to eat, right? Is it the fruit of life or fruit of death, right? That sounds familiar, right? Deuteronomy 30 and 16. I think it's 15, 40. It's a lot. It's 19. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 13, verse 19. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you. I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. What did God said? Right? Therefore, choose life. Right? You need to choose life. So if you're choosing life, you're practicing to build what? A wholesome tongue, right? You can start that by reading and then speaking, right? Like by doing daily meditations, right? Just such as this one, right? Because we have, because we want to choose what? We want to live, right? So let's bring out another verse. Uh, this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 15 and verse 1. Now, remember, right? You're going to have a lot of arguments, challenges, difficulties, opinions, right? But one way to manage that, right? Because remember, when there is power of the tongue or power in general, we need to what? Manage it, right? Because whatever skill or power that you have, you need to get that in control, right? Because once it loses, right? Once it loses control, power can still be what? Dangerous. So we have to what? Manage it. We have to what? Manage it, right? This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 15 and verse 1, right? Soft answer turneth away wrath, but reverse words stir up anger, right? You have to be gentle, right? You have to have that spirit of meekness, right? Because some brothers really just want to talk to you. Some brothers just want to discuss something to you, right? It's not always about I have the best doctrine, I have the best interpretation. No. Sometimes you will encounter brothers that are they just really want to let out something, right? Sometimes they don't really want to fight. They're just trying to walk with the spirit, right? Or walk with the words that they are discovering, right? Actually, let's go there. One of my favorite verses, Galatians 5 and 16. This is the book of Galatians, chapter 5 and verse 16. Is I say then, walk in the Spirit. Read that again. Walk in the Spirit, right? Don't rush things, right? Be gentle, be slow. Everything is always slow, right? Because we are practicing temperance, right? Or it's that self-controlled spirit, right? Because we cannot lose our balance in this thing, right? Yes, we may fall. Yes, there's grace and mercy, right? But there is a way to, endure in this thing, right? And ye shall what? Not fulfill the lust of the flesh, right? So some brothers really just want to have a conversation with you, right? They want to share their findings, right? Listening is an art, right? Just like what Captain Tazaric says, like listening is an art. Some brothers really just want to converse, right? And then you can, if a wise man will add on to it, right? If he agrees, right? Let's go there, Sarah. And 21 verse 15. This is the book of Ecclesiasticus or Sirach chapter 21 and verse 15. If a skillful man hear a wise word, he will what? Commend it. Right? Commend, or I think that's agree, if I'm not mistaken. Formally praise or approve, right? And add on to it, right? That's what you do. You just gotta build up in this thing, right? Whatever doctrine that you agree on, add on to it, right? Whatever position, perspective, opinion that you agree with, add on to it, right? But as soon as one of no understanding heard it, it displeased him, and he casted it behind his back, right? We have to have an agreement or disagreement in this thing, right? Because Yahushua will come here and will teach us, the right ways someday, right? So let's go back to Proverbs 15, verse 1. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger, right? It's always about being gentle, right? Being meek, right? Because brothers have hard time studying something, whatever it is, we have to be patient, right? Because remember, right, a wholesome tongue is what a cure, right? And it helps them. Same way it helps us, right? So that's our lesson on sharing for the Sabbath delights for today. And Tuara for thank you for listening, right? At the end of the day, all praises to the Most High Yahweh through His Son, Yahweh Shai. Thank you and have a nice Sabbath.